at 8 Mile Road in Detroit. Before the world knew the name Eminem, there was a frightened white kid walking through neighborhoods where he constantly felt unwanted. Broken homes, violence, poverty, humiliation. And inside that chaos, Marshall Mathers was quietly becoming consumed by rage. Years later, the world would see one of the greatest rappers in music history, a lyrical genius, a global icon, a man whose words could shake entire industries. But behind the fame, behind the controversy, behind the platinum records, lawsuits, addiction, public scandals, and violent lyrics, there was another story, a painful one, because while millions of people celebrated Eminem for his anger, few people stopped to ask where that anger came from in the first place. The bullying, the abandonment, the poverty, the emotional instability, the broken family life, the addiction, the loneliness, and the terrifying psychological reality that sometimes humor becomes survival for deeply damaged people. For years, Eminem transformed pain into entertainment for the world, and eventually, that pain nearly destroyed him. This is the dark pressure behind Eminem. Before the fame, before Lose Yourself, before becoming one of the best-selling artists in human history, there was Missouri. Marshall Bruce Mathers III was born into instability almost immediately. His father reportedly abandoned the family while Eminem was still an infant. And emotionally, that absence shaped his life permanently. Because children often spend years psychologically trying to understand why someone left them behind. Then came Detroit, or more specifically, the struggling neighborhoods surrounding it. Eminem's childhood became defined by constant movement, different schools, different apartments, different temporary homes. Financial struggle followed his mother constantly. And psychologically, children raised inside unstable environments often develop survival instincts very early. But survival is not peace. Marshall reportedly became shy, emotionally isolated, socially awkward, and school quickly became brutal. He was bullied repeatedly, physically attacked, humiliated, beaten severely. One assault reportedly caused serious brain injury during childhood. And psychologically, repeated humiliation changes people deeply, especially boys growing up without emotional stability, because pain without protection often transforms into rage. Then came rap music, and suddenly, Marshall found something powerful for the first time in his life: identity, control, expression. Hip-hop became emotional escape from poverty, violence, loneliness, and humiliation. But there was another problem. Eminem was white. And during that era, hip-hop remained deeply connected to black culture and black communities, which meant Eminem entered rap battling another psychological pressure entirely: the constant need to prove he belonged. Battle rap became survival. And perhaps nowhere shaped Eminem more psychologically than Detroit's underground rap scene. Crowded clubs, hostile crowds, public humiliation waiting constantly for failure. But Marshall learned something important. If he attacked himself first, nobody else's insults could hurt him as much. And slowly, Slim Shady was born, not simply as entertainment, as psychological armor. Because behind Eminem's humor, violence, and controversy, there was often self-hatred hiding underneath. Then came Dr. Dre, one of the most important moments in music history. After years of rejection and poverty, Eminem's demo eventually reached Dr. Dre. And almost immediately, Dre recognized something extraordinary. The lyrical ability looked unreal. The storytelling, the rhyme structures, the emotional intensity. But fame arrived violently fast afterward. Suddenly, Eminem became one of the most controversial artists on earth. Parents hated him. Politicians attacked him. News stations blamed him for corrupting youth culture. Meanwhile, millions of fans became obsessed. And psychologically, that level of fame changes people permanently. especially people already carrying unresolved trauma internally. The Slim Shady character exploded globally. Violent lyrics, dark humor, shock value, celebrity feuds, chaos. But perhaps what made Eminem psychologically fascinating was how often his music sounded like emotional breakdown disguised as entertainment. Because beneath the jokes, many songs contained real rage, real pain, real instability. Then came his relationship with Kim, one of the most toxic and emotionally volatile celebrity relationships in modern music history. Love, hatred, obsession, public humiliation. The relationship became deeply intertwined with Eminem's music and emotional collapse, and millions of listeners watched the dysfunction unfold publicly through lyrics. Meanwhile, another emotional pressure slowly consumed him: fatherhood. Despite all the chaos surrounding him, Eminem's daughter Haley became one of the only emotional anchors in his life. Many people close to him believed fatherhood represented the softer side of Marshall Mathers, rarely seen publicly. But fame continued escalating. Touring, media pressure, public controversy, constant attention. And slowly, the line between Eminem and Slim Shady began collapsing psychologically. Then came addiction, prescription pills, sleeping medication, painkillers. At first, the drugs reportedly helped him escape pressure. Then, eventually, they controlled him completely. And perhaps the scariest part about addiction is how invisible it can become at the height of success. Because while Eminem continued selling millions of records publicly, privately, his life was collapsing. By the mid-2000s, his addiction reportedly became severe enough to nearly kill him. Then came 2007, the overdose. Eminem reportedly nearly died after consuming methadone. Doctors later suggested the amount in his system was potentially fatal. And psychologically, moments like that force people into terrifying self-awareness, because suddenly, the image of invincibility disappears. The world saw a superstar, but privately, Marshall Mathers was emotionally exhausted, physically dependent, isolated, grieving, and close to death. Then came something even darker: Proof, Eminem's best friend, his emotional support, his creative partner, his closest connection to normal life. When Proof was killed in 2006, the loss devastated Eminem psychologically. Many people later believed that grief accelerated his emotional collapse dramatically, because behind the fame, Marshall had lost one of the few people he fully trusted. And afterward, the isolation deepened. For years, Eminem largely disappeared publicly. Weight gain, depression, addiction recovery, emotional withdrawal. The man who once dominated music culture looked psychologically broken. Then came recovery. Slowly, Eminem rebuilt himself. Sobriety changed him physically and emotionally. And over time, his music began sounding different too. Still angry, still intense, but more reflective, more emotionally self-aware. And perhaps that evolution revealed something important about Eminem psychologically. Because underneath Slim Shady, underneath the controversy, underneath the rage, there had always been a frightened child trying desperately not to feel powerless again. Today, Eminem remains one of the most influential rappers in music history. His lyrics changed hip-hop forever. His storytelling became legendary. His technical skill reshaped rap culture globally. But behind the success story, there is also a darker human story. A bullied child growing up in chaos, a teenager searching for identity, a man emotionally consumed by rage, a father terrified of repeating abandonment, a global icon psychologically trapped between Marshall Mathers and Slim Shady, and a human being who spent much of his life turning trauma into survival. Because sometimes, the funniest people are carrying the deepest pain. And sometimes, the people who sound the angriest publicly are the ones who spent their entire childhood feeling unheard privately. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Dark Human Stories for more psychological celebrity documentaries, emotional fame stories, hidden struggles behind greatness, and powerful untold human stories. And remember, sometimes the loudest voices are created by the deepest wounds.